Hello, my friends. Jerry Rosa here in the Rosa Stringworks Man Cave with Bill Webb. And I didn't get a mic going for Bill this morning. In fact, I barely got anything going this morning, so we're just lucky to be here. That's where we are right now. It's amazing. Just amazing. I don't know what's going to happen this evening. I'm telling you. It sounds simple to say, just move the show this evening back down to the shop. Yeah, that's simple, except that it's not. There's a lot of equipment to move, a lot of connections to make with computers, and who knows if they'll work down there when you get them down there. Plus, that computer is not as good as this computer. It's just not simple. It's just not simple. So I don't know what we're going to do. I just know I'm nervous in the service right now. I hope it's working. Right now, according to the speed right now, it should be okay, but I don't know. I got a good short program for you today. Well, short except that the videos are actually kind of long. I've got 3 videos. I said in the description I got short videos for you, but that was before I made them. And then I made them, and they're not short. So there you go. But before we do that, I got a couple of thank yous to say. And one of them is from Steve Mays. Steve Mays sent me a really nice card. And he wrote in here, it says, "Hi, Jerry. I just wanted you to know how much you're appreciated. Your videos have brought me and others, I'm sure, hours of training and enjoyment. I look forward to the daily vlogs and now the mandolin lessons. Thank you. I have inserted a little bit to help you with your time and cost. I prefer the cut out the middleman. I prefer to cut out the middleman altogether. I hope this helps you. Your viewer, Steve Mays." Well, Steve, thank you very kindly. And your contribution was huge. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Very nice.
He was very thoughtful, very, very kind man, obviously. So thank you, Steve. I really do appreciate it. Let's see. The other very thoughtful, very kind thing was that this man treated Sue and I to dinner last night. Bill and Mona went out to dinner with us. We went to Bandanas. It's kind of a barbecue place. You've probably got some of those in your area. And anyway, we had a nice dinner, nice chat, and I was reaching for the bill, and Bill beat me to the bill. And thank you, Bill.
Ramona was punching me. Get that, get that.
Yeah, she had a knife in his side. But anyway, thank you very much for that wonderful dinner last night. It was our 48th wedding anniversary, and yeah, there you go. I've got, the title says it was Boxing Day here from a hillbilly's perspective. And yeah, and in the UK, Boxing Day means something altogether, or in Australia, it means something altogether different. I honestly don't know exactly what it means, but here, this is what it means. My friends, yesterday was Boxing Day for 2 reasons. Number 1, I was making these boxes with the laser cutter, my Creality Falcon 2 laser cutter that was sent to me from those wonderful folks, and I absolutely love it. So I made these boxes, and the second reason it was Boxing Day is because I'm trying to utilize them with these Native American artifacts that I've found. You can see what we've got here, and just as an example, in case you're not familiar with artifacts, these are the tail end of what people call arrowheads. These are mostly what you would refer to as a spear point. But they're the broken tails, and we found lots of the broken tails in there because, my theory is that they're out hunting with spears, and when they get back to camp, they cut off the broken points and put on new ones, and they throw the broken ones down. That's my theory. Whether that's a true theory or not, I don't know. Some of them are close to being whole. This one here, the point is broken off, as you can see. There's lots of them like that. These are hand axes that Sue found, actually. She found this one and found this one. I have never found one of these. She found them both. I did find this. This is a piece of hematite, which I believe they held exactly like you see it there. See how it fits your hand perfectly? And I believe they used it to chip off these edges and make the arrowheads with something like that, because this is much harder rock, much heavier. This is basically iron ore, hematite. This is a specialized tool where they started fires with it. That is as slick as snot on a doorknob right there. You cannot feel anything but just smoothness right there. And I'm sure that they held it in their hand like this, held it down like that, and the stick that they were rotating would ride right in that spot there, and they would rotate it with a bow. And anyway, the bottom would be on a piece of dry wood, and it would cause enough friction to start the fire. And you can't hold it in your hand. You have to have something to hold it. This piece is, unknown whether they used it or not, but I say they did because it's a real hard stone, and this is also as slick as snot on a doorknob. It's very slick. You can tell they've polished it a lot. And very smooth on this side. The edges are kind of rough. So I think they used it to grind things, maybe grains, corns, who knows, maybe even grapes. Who knows what they ground with it. These two are just unique rocks that were found in the campground area, which there are no real rocks up there. So anything that you find up there, for the most part, they pretty much brought in. And you think, well, what would that be? That's probably nothing. Well, I don't know, but look at the other side of it. It's a very unique looking rock. This is I would say it's some sort of a fossilized secretion type rock. I really don't know what it is and whether they used it or not. But we found it there, and I thought it was interesting, so I brought it back. Same way kind of with this rock. I'm not really sure they use this for anything either. But again, this type of rock probably was in the creek to be this smooth. It's also got a weird shape there. I thought at first it might have resembled something, maybe some sort of an animal or something. And I thought, maybe it was some sort of an effigy type thing, but I don't know what it is. It just looked unique, and I feel like they probably had it in their hand. Don't know that for sure. These are some of the larger pieces that we found up there. And, a lot of people would say, well, how do you know those are anything? Well, you can tell they've worked them. The edges have been flaked off, especially like on a piece like this. You can see all the flaking along the edges. And like a piece like this, you think, well, what could they have possibly used that for? But if you lay that down and you lay another piece like this next to it, which I don't know that those two pieces went together, but they may have. This could have been some sort of a hoe or some kind of a digging tool, or who knows what it was. But once again, all of these pieces have been worked. It's real obvious when you know what you're looking at, whether they've been worked or not. I try to only keep the pieces that I'm fairly confident that they worked. Then again, these are all pretty much work pieces, not fairly much nondescript. A lot of them are mid-sections out of arrowheads or something, out of, spear points. Definitely been worked pieces, no question about it. But again, like this probably was, I would say this maybe was a broken piece out of the side of a long, large arrowhead or spear. Just hard to say. This box is mostly about flaking. These rocks here, they refer to them as an adze, and these large flakes that are knocked off of them, this was probably one of the best examples. These flakes become like knives. They're very sharp. When you knock a flake off of something like this, it becomes something like that. Whether or not this flake came off of this rock or not, I don't know, but it looks very, very similar, like the very similar type rock. And anyway, these flakes, when they first come off, they can actually be sharper than a surgeon's scalpel. They can be only 2 or 3 microns thick on the edge, where a surgeon's scalpel is a little bit more than that. And anyway, you can skin a rabbit with this, skin a deer with it. You know, people think they skinned them with their actual arrowheads. No, not likely, because their arrowheads aren't that sharp. They'll puncture, but they won't cut very well. These really do cut well. And this whole box here is just some of those flakes. And, you know, if you think these flakes are just accidental, try to make a flake like that. When you chip two rocks together, you usually just get a chip. To make a flake like that took some skill, actually. So that's how I know they work these things. These are nearly full arrowheads. They're not, but they're nearly full arrowheads. So I've got those in here. We don't find very many full arrowheads in this spot because, again, I think they were reworking them or they were making them and they broke in the process of making, and so they threw them down, you know. And this one's a little bit unique in that it's got a really long flute in it right here. Reminds me of a Clovis point, which would be really, really old. And these in here are all pieces where I've pieced them together. You see this little piece at the top here, I found that in 9/23/06. This piece at the bottom, I found it in 2005. And you can see they fit together perfectly. And once you start putting them together, you can see the form of the tool. It was a giant tool. Same way with these other pieces. Found this piece here in 2005. Found this piece also in 2005, but August 30th, 2005. You can see it's broke right across there. It's amazing that you can find parts that fit together, but we do sometimes. And here's another one that was broken, and you can see a little piece out of the edge here, but it definitely goes together. You can tell by the color and everything. Found that in 2005, found that in 2004. And it absolutely goes together for sure. Here's just another unique piece that they made. I don't know what this was. It came out of the middle of something. And all of these parts in here are drills, pieces of drills. Long, narrow, skinny things. Like this here, they held onto this piece. This part here was the drill, and it would be a long, skinny, thin piece, and they could drill fine holes in things, at least fine for their day. Again, here's another one that would have had they would drill a fine hole in something. These are all points, of arrowheads here. These are all points, as the opposite of this. There is an outside chance that if we match this up with this, we might find a match. There's a possibility. I haven't had that kind of time to sit down and really try to go through it all. It'd be very cool if we found some matches. But again, most of this I've just been sorting through roughly like this, and I try to find, what I think it is. Like that's probably out of the center of a large point. I'm looking for either the tips or the bases, and I'm putting those in those two locations. But most of this is just going to go in what I call a nondescript box. Most of the rest of this is somewhat classified. So there you go. That's what I'm doing. It's a complicated process and takes a little bit of time, but that was Boxing Day yesterday.
There you go. I don't have anything to add, but I do have another video, and so I'll show it to you right now.
This dirty old cardboard box holds other rocks that we found up there. Again, don't know if they use these or not. These two look more like some sort of a petrified bone or something. It's probably just some kind of a concretion type natural rock, but it looks like a bone. This one here looks like a bone, a leg bone of something, but it also is rock. It's definitely not a bone anymore. Very old, obviously, whatever it is. And these other ones just are rocks, can't really say. But this would have been a river rock, and it's up there in the middle of that high spot where they had their camp. Same way with this. All these rocks. It's unlikely that these rocks were there on their own. It's very likely they brought them there. And like this one here, I would say they ground something with this one. It's round on the bottom and fairly smooth. This one's pretty smooth on the bottom here. They probably ground something with that one. More than likely. Don't know it for sure. You can't really say for sure. But then again, like I said, there's just not very many rock in that one spot on the farm. Everywhere else on this farm, it's covered in rock.
Still don't have anything to add, but I got one more video, and here it is.
Here's the better arrowheads we found. I want to be clear. There's several things we did not find here. Those two there we did not find. This one we did not find. This one we did not find. And this one we did not find. The rest we did. They were all found here in that campground area for the most part. This one's very unique in that it's what they call a calf creek point. See how the ears go all the way down level with the base? So it forms pretty much a perfect triangle. I saw a dust triangle in the dust. It was really dusty when I was plowing the field. And all I saw was just powdered dust in the shape of a triangle. I saw no rock whatsoever. But triangles aren't normal, so I jumped off the tractor, went over there and dusted it off. Sure enough, that was laying underneath it. 10 minutes later, I was at the house taking a shower, fixed my lunch, sat down, turned on PBS, and I promise you, they were showing this almost identical arrowhead in this documentary. And what had happened was this man had found a buffalo skull in a river, and it had one of these embedded in the base of the skull. Well, to prove, basically what it was to prove this was real and not a hoax. And so they took it to a buffalo expert first, and this guy had a museum of buffalo skulls, and he looked at the skull for just a second, and he says to them, wow, he said, that's for sure authentic buffalo skull. And he says, that skull, do you guys realize that buffalo went extinct 5,000 years ago? And they were floored by it because it was a special type of skull, special horns, everything, unique. And anyway, so then they took it and had it x-rayed at the hospital or whatever, and then they took those x-rays to an arrowhead specialist and showed him this point embedded in the skull. And he says, wow, and he didn't know about the guy that talked about the skull in the museum, this guy that only knew about arrowheads. And he says, wow, he says, that's a Calf Creek arrowhead point. And he says, do you know that was made about 5,000 years ago? Now, there you go. Two different people with the same exact theory, which I thought was cool. Here's another adze that they chip flakes off of. This is just showing you that this is what some people call this a preform. Some people call these Hopewell points. There's a million names for every point on here, and everybody calls them something different. I don't want to get into that argument. This is the oldest point in here. We did not find this here. We found this where I used to live. This is called a Dalton Point. And, depending on who you believe and what you believe, this is 8 to 12,000 years old, somewhere in there. This is a very unique tool. As I showed you before, they had a fire starter rock. This is also a fire starter rock, but this one probably served two different purposes. If you look close, you can see the worked edge around here, and then that's where they held the stick. Perfectly smooth again, but this edge around here, they used it probably as a scraper as well. This is more perfect all here, or a for drilling a hole, a drill. People call them all kinds of things, but drilling holes in leather or whatever. This can also be used to spear fish. It could be almost anything. Now, again, that wasn't found here, so I just want to be clear. But I think this is one of the coolest ones that we found here. This one's really cool. But if you get up here, the coolest of all is that little sucker right there. Look how perfectly that thing is formed. See those little tiny serrations on the edge? And how perfect it is. Can you imagine making that and making it that perfect with those little tiny serrations? Was that guy an artist, or was that guy an artist? He took pride in his work. Another example of things is these, what I think are resharpened arrowheads. Notice how this one's so short. Well, it probably broke off, and for economy of scale, they just resharpened it. Same way with this one, I think. Don't know that for sure, but that's what I would say happened there. This is another example of either a preform or a Hopewell point, depending on what you want to call it. And I don't know, this was the only really black one we found. It's not onyx, but it's a black type rock. The last thing I will tell you is that this one here looks like it went together, and my rototiller broke that out. I was rototilling that area before I knew it was an artifact site. So I never did find the other part there. That's it. Hope you enjoyed it.
Okay, now I got stuff to add. That little tiny point that with the serrations, the tip obviously was broken off of that. We only found that much of it, the base. But, that just goes to show you that, that was probably 1,200 years old, roughly. I'm just giving you some ballpark idea. It could have been 900 years old, could have been 1,500 years old. But that's actually the size of an arrowhead, converse to the other ones that are basically spear points. You got to remember back then, their bows weren't super powerful, and the arrows would be pretty flimsy also. And if you put anything heavy on an arrow and tried to shoot it with a bow, it's just gonna go. It's just gonna bend the arrow and go straight in the ground. It isn't even gonna fly. So that's why they had to use those little tiny points. And lots of people that don't know a lot about it call them bird points. And honestly, it's not a bird point necessarily. It's pretty much anything that walks in front of the arrow point. That's what it was for. They would shoot pretty much anything that got in front of them. And they didn't have Walmart, they had to get their own food whatever way they could get it, So anyway, I just thought that was interesting. Hope you guys found it interesting. And it's time to classify all that stuff and put it in boxes. So Boxing Day is going to continue today, probably, except for the fact that we got that live show tonight. So I got to do a lot of worrying between now and then. Don't know if I'll get much boxing done. Oh, my gosh. Let's see. Do you have any questions about any of that stuff? Feel free to ask them. I don't take all of it, but I take, several of those boxes now I will take to the schools and give them presentations. I've done that for years. I've been doing that since around 2000 and pretty much do it every year to 2 or 3 different schools in the area. And they asked me to come back and make a presentation on the Native American artifacts, and they also, have us play. We usually play music for them too, and I show them the custom-built instruments and things like that, and the kids just love it. They just eat it up. Let's go to the comments and see who's there and what's going on, and even if we're still alive, because we don't know from this side. We can't tell. John Pepper looked like he was the first one, Eddie Turner and David Tharp. And moving down here, David Tharp says, what did the snail say when it rode on the back of the turtle? I've heard this one. Whee! That's fast for a snail. Let's see. He's got another one. It says, what did the other snail say when it rode on the turtle? Slow down before you kill us both.
That was the wife.
Huh?
That was the wife snail.
Yeah. Wayne Blitz, good morning, Jerry. Hope all is well with everybody. Did you get your hay bale before it rained? Yeah, they did. They did a good job with it. They bought all different equipment. In fact, the only thing that we used from previous years was our rake, our 3-point rake. That thing works like a charm. And other than that, everything else was new. JR took my 2 balers, traded them in, bought that other baler. Sue bought a big hay grapple that grabs 10 bales at a time. We're talking square bales, and it picks up 10 bales and moves them over and sets them on the trailer, so they don't even have to hand lift them anymore, which is awesome. The only time they had to hand lift them was when they put them in the barn, and all they did was take them off the trailer, put them on the conveyor belt that sends them up to the barn, and then somebody up there has to stack it in the barn. But that was the only hand work they had to do. Anyway, JR bought a new John Deere hay bine new to him. It's definitely not new. It's really old, actually. But it seemed to cut really well and did all the hay, cut all the hay.
And then he bought a Massey Ferguson baler, and they said it never missed a single tie, which is almost unheard of with an old square baler, but that's pretty amazing to me. So they did really well with their hay, and I didn't have to touch nothing or get involved, other than I had to spend about 3 hours repairing our hay rake because it actually probably would have worked, but I could see the end was coming, so I took preventative measure to keep it from breaking, and that's where I spent my couple of 3 hours there. Let's see. Brian Byler, what do you get when you combine a fish and an elephant? Swimming trunks. Let's see. Daddy Hildebrandt, praying for the Rosa. It moved on me. Thank you, Dottie, for the prayers. We appreciate it. Moving on down. Let's see. Looking for the question marks. I don't see any. I'm probably passing somebody up. David Tharp says, I told my wife she should embrace her mistakes. She gave me a hug. That one's too funny. Let's see. Bill Rhodes, good morning. Well, good morning to you, Bill. Let's see. Ed Koch. Jerry, could you tell us about the Bell System plaque on the wall behind you? You might remember I am a retired AT&T employee. Well, yeah, and I forgot to turn that light off. Would you mind turning that light off there, please? It's just got a push button up there, up high. Yeah, I've told the story about this picture up there. It's a picture I painted, basically. I was in I think it was one of my psychology classes. I can't remember now because I took a lot of psychology classes. I went to night school for 18 years. No exaggeration. Full 18 years. From the time I was 18 to the time I was 36. And one of those classes, we were supposed to cut out pictures out of a magazine, out of we're all adults. To me, cutting out pictures just seems stupid. So anyway, we were supposed to cut out pictures out of a newspaper, magazine, and make a collage of things that were important to us in our life. And so after the class was over, that was the assignment. So I went to the instructor. I said, would you care if I just painted a collage rather than cut out pictures, He goes, no, that's fine. And I said, okay, well, so that's what I did. And so, it's not that Bell was the most important thing. It's just that it kind of made everything happen for me. The fact that I had a good job working for Southwestern Bell, my family life rotated around that. And so the very thing at the very top, which is the most prominent place in the picture, you can't see it very well from there, is a picture of my house that I built. Would you mind just taking it off the wall? It's just on nails, and just lift it and bring it over here. And then I'll just get it up close so you can see it a little better. Yeah. So anyway, that house was built on the hillside, and it used to have pillars. It was sitting on pillars, so it was off the ground. And anyway, I basically held it in the air and then dug it out and built a full basement underneath it. And that was quite a job. And so that's sitting in the number one position, if you will. And everything's backwards, sorry. Then the guitar and the banjo, that represents my love of the music. And, the house represents my family, of course. And then this little quarter, and it's all backwards to me, so I can't point at it. But that quarter represents my grandfather. Every time I went to visit him, he would give us an old quarter or something, and we'd instantly, even though they were solid silver and they were the old standing Liberty quarters, we'd run straight to the store and spend them, on candy, because we were stupid little kids, And he never said a word about it, He never said it, that, hey, you ought to put these away and save them. He never said that. It's amazing. Then the deer is just my love of animals and wildlife and things and hunting and all that. And then the horses was my dad because he always had the horses. And, of course, I did, too. I mean, I showed horses and things, too. And then the archery there, the bow, that I was a Missouri State champion when I was like 16. And then the fish up there is, that was probably, and the reason it's so big, I think, is because that was my escape when I was a child. From working, I would go fishing. That was me and my buddy, we would take off and go fishing. Turned out my buddy later, after we had been apart about 10 years, we got back together, and he was playing bluegrass also, which I thought was really cool because neither one of us played it when we were kids. And anyway, he also played fiddle for Mel Tillis and some other people. You can just sit it on the floor there. It's fine. Anyway, I've shown that before or told it before, but I thought I'd give you a closer up view of it that time. I used to paint a lot, used to draw a lot, but I haven't done that in years. Just can't find time. Let's see, moving on down.
Daddy was wanting to know if I've seen Sasquatch in the hills. Only when I look in the mirror.
Yeah. Well, it just scrolled on me again. Now I got to find it again. I don't know where it went. Okay, there. I think I found it. All right, after we went live, looks like Walt Willard was number one. Let's see. Okay, moving on down. Bruce Moore, congratulations on your anniversary. My wife and I celebrated 60th anniversary on the 13th. Well, congratulations to you, too. Zappa says, good question. What led someone to rub two sticks together enough to accidentally end up with fire? Yeah, your guess is as good as mine on that one. How did they develop it? How did they figure it out? I don't know. I just don't know. It's pretty cool though that they figured it out. Let me back up the truck for a second. I think we're dealing here. People always ask me, what tribe were they? And that question's probably coming up down here. I guarantee it almost always I get that question. And if it isn't, I'm going to answer it anyway. And for me, I don't think of these people as being tribes. This was very old. I mean, the newest stuff was like 1,200, 1,500 years old. In fact, it predates pottery. There's no pottery on this site. Pottery came in 800 to 1,200 years ago, something like that. And so to me, I wanted to make the point that these are prehistoric people. These are, I hesitate calling them cave people, but they're kind of like that. They're, Stone Age people, really. They didn't have metal of any kind. They didn't have pottery. They're Stone Age people. And, but yet, when you look at the technology they had and how well they used it and the fact that they lived there it's obvious they lived there in that spot for thousands of years, or at least, not the same group of people, obviously. It was probably people moving in and out all that time, but it was such a good spot because it had water on three sides, yet it was elevated and it was in between huge hills to block the wind. I mean, it's like heaven on earth back then, water everywhere, and yet it won't flood, and yet the wind's blocked. You couldn't find hardly a better place other than maybe in a nice large cave, and there is a cave real close to there, but I haven't found any evidence they used the cave yet. But my point in all that rambling is to say, with that technology, think how smart they were. Just think about the fact that they found iron ore to make those hand axes out of. They made those points, some of them, so perfect. And all they had to work with was a stick and a rock. That's pretty much all they had to work with. And they were not dumb at all. They were not stupid people. They were just as sharp as you and I, and probably a whole lot sharper about staying alive, back in that time frame. I think I have a bad day when I can't get an ice cube, Just think of what they were living without. And the bugs sometimes, well, we saw a swarm last night. We saw a swarm of bugs coming out of something, the creek or somewhere. Huge swarm. And these were little tiny. They weren't mayflies, little tiny, but they were as thick as like mayflies. When they swarm, it was a cloud. It was a huge cloud, wasn't it? It was huge. It went all the way down the driveway. It was huge. Can you imagine living out in that? These bugs are all over you. The mosquitoes are eating you alive because the mosquitoes here will just carry you off. The horse flies, the ticks, the chiggers, and yet they survived it all. And boy, and they had ways to deal with most all that stuff, Let's see, moving on down. Gary Cooper, unique rocks are used when unique up on a wabbit. Yep, I agree with that one. David Tharp, Sandra and I celebrated our 52nd anniversary on the 24th. Well, congratulations. Happy anniversary. And moving on down here, Zappa. Jerry, the smooth stones in the cardboard box may have been used to work animal hides as well. Yeah, that's very likely too, because they did beat on the leather, and they would chew the leather. They would do all kinds of things to make it softer. Captain Bubba, on Emery's video, Magnolia was in on the mandolin backing her up. Her voice is really special. Yes. On Emery's video, Magnolia. I don't know what we're talking about there. That one's going over my head. I don't know who. I mean, Emery, my daughter-in-law, if that's the one you're talking about, of course, it doesn't matter, but her name is actually spelled Emeri. But but Magnolia, I have no idea what that was. Okay. Sorry. Michael Peters, glad you are showing these artifacts. My family and I were blown away when you showed us last week. It was in our conversation for the rest of the day. Well, thank you. Enjoy having you here. Carolyn Fike, fascinating. Love hunting for projectile points. Found some in North Florida years ago. Usually they would show up after a rain. Yep. The sandy soil would wash away, leaving the point in place. Now, I know many of you have heard me tell this story, but I got to tell you about those two hand axes. I got to tell you the story because it's such a... I'm not lying when I say this, and I'm not even exaggerating this much. I promise you, every single thing I tell you is 100% true. And yet, with it being true, you could go win the lottery like 25 times in a row before this would ever happen again. I'm seriously telling you, the odds of this are this slim. So we're back there, and Sue and I were on a four-wheeler together, and we were looking for wild grapes. Well, we came by the Arrowhead area, and I said to her, hey, let's get off and look for arrowheads because it's just rained, and we'll probably find a bunch. No, I don't want to. And this is exactly what she said. She says, I don't want to. I never find nothing. I don't like doing that. And so she's standing beside the four-wheeler, and she's kind of aggravated and just kind of standing there. And I'm out in the field walking around, and I'm looking down. I'm walking with my head down looking for points. And I said, with all the points and with all the hundreds of points I found, I cannot believe I haven't found a hand axe yet. And I swear to you, hand on a Bible, God is my witness, she doesn't even look at the ground. She doesn't. She's looking at me. She's mad. She says, here's one right here. Let's just go. Here's one right here. Let's just go. And she just does that. And she's looking at me the whole time. And she picks up, and then her eyes, and I said to her, I remember distinctly saying, I said, just throw it down. I'm not going to fall for that. Then I look at her eyes. Her eyes are this big around. And she's going, oh my gosh, it really is one. She's like, and I'm going, oh, and then I see her eyes, and I'm going, she can't make her eyes that big by accident. There's no way. And so I walk over there, and that biggest one she had in her hand. It's just nuts. I mean, the way that happened. All right, so you think, well, okay, fine, that happened one time. All right, well, here's what happened the second time. We're back there about a month later, and I say to her, hey, let's look again. Maybe we'll find some more stuff. Oh, I don't want to. I never find nothing. I said, you found an 8,000-year-old hand axe last time. I said, just get off and look. She gets off the four-wheeler. She starts walking like she's walking across a golf course. She's not looking at the ground at all. She walks about 20 yards. And bends over and says, here's another one. I'm going, I have spent days, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not lying. I've spent like 3 days in a row just out there walking that field, after I plow it up or whatever, and just looking for points. I've spent 3 or 4 days just with my head down, walking around all day long. Never found one of those. She found 2 of them. That's the only 2 things she has ever found. And I'm not making that up. That's the only 2 things she's ever found, artifact-wise. It's nuts. It's just nuts. And again, that kind of shows you my normal luck, too. It's like, that could never happen to me. Anyway, let's see. I'm trying to find, it scrolled on me, so I'm trying to scroll it back and find where we're at. Okay, let's see. I think I found it. Rod Wentler, for what it's worth, there have been no glitches or buffering in the delays. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, well, right now, see, what I did was I took out one router and I just replaced it with a switch. So we've only got the router down in the shop talking to the fiber optic company's router or whatever you want to call that thing, their box. So I've got the main router down there talking to that box. And then I've got a router up here in the house with a fiber cable running between them. And then the rest of it's Ethernet all the way back to here. And there's no other router in between there now. And so I figured that would probably help it a little bit. But it's still going through it's still going through 2 switches to get here. It's hard. This is a big house, and it's hard to get stuff this far back here. Well, anyway, so hopefully, and yeah, let me know if you see any glitches. Of course, I'll be watching this later to see what I think, but I really do have a lot of worrying to do between now and this evening. Let's see. Let's see here. Let's see. The Outboard Tinkerer says, "Hi, Jerry. Can you explain why mandolin songs in flatted keys are tricky to play to the average player?" No, I can't, because when you use my method, and again, I don't mean to, I'm not trying to do this. I'm just telling you this is just the way I feel about it. It's just, I wouldn't tell you different no matter what you ask, I don't think it's hard at all. I think it's incredibly simple. And I think you'll see that once we get into the meat of this. In fact, it's black and white. It's black and white. It's not, there's no gray area whatsoever. It's just black and white. And I think everybody will see that when we get into it. Unfortunately, we won't get into it tonight. It'll be next week, Thursday, before we get into that. Ramona Webb, what do you get when you cross an elephant with a rhino? Elephino. Do you know her?
No, I don't know her. Not after that.
Gary Hayden, just now getting in. Wild Bill be there tonight? Will Wild Bill be there tonight? Will Bill be there? I can't read. I'm telling you, I cannot read. Who will the pickers be? Well, it'll be our regular band. I think Bill Pilliard will be there, if that's the Bill you're asking about, or are you asking about this Bill? But this Bill's welcome to come in, and we'll probably have him do a song or something, maybe a halftime or something like that. Tucker Burke, if that's not, no question marks, never mind. I'm looking for question marks. David Tharp, my favorite animal is a chicken, fried chicken. Yeah, I kind of agree with that one. Maybe turkey. I like turkey just about as well. Pork just about as well. Beef just about as well. When you go down to fish. I'm not so much, fish is okay. I could eat it, but it's not my favorite. Let's see. Captain Bubba, the horse Phantom 614, was he a top horse in the show ring? What was the time frame? This was back in the 70s and maybe even it was early 70s, really, and probably up to the mid 70s, late 70s, was when we had him. And he wasn't what you call a top show horse in terms of the gait. He was mediocre on that, but he was a top show horse when it comes to conformation in terms of the looks. He was one of the most beautiful stallions you would have ever seen in your whole life. I mean, he was that gorgeous. And he won the World Championship model horse that year, the 1 year. And after he won that, of course, I came home from school, saw a new motorcycle sitting on the front porch. It wasn't brand new, but a new used motorcycle sitting on the front porch. I went down I thought, where did that come from? And when I say sitting on the front porch, our front porch was concrete. It was at the same level as the driveway, and it had an overhang on that, so they pulled it up under that overhang. So anyway, it was sitting there, and where did that come from? And so I thought probably it was some guy working for my dad, because he had a lot of guys working for him with his landscaping business. So I just assumed that's what it was. I go down to the barn, and there's like 500 new bales of hay in the barn. I'm like, where did that come from? So I start walking. This barn is a weird barn in that the barn, all the storages and the stalls were in the middle, kind of like JR's barn. It's very similar. In fact, he patterned it after my dad, I think. All the stuff's in the middle, and you ride around it, So I'm walking around that ring to get down to where my stall is. Well, there's 2 new horses in two stalls. Where did they come from? Get down to my stall. The door's standing wide open. Kind of knew where it all came from then, and that's where it all came from. Anyway, let's see. Moving on down, David Tharp, we don't have alligators in Missouri. The mosquitoes got them all. I'd almost second that one. I think that's pretty much true. It probably at least ran them off. There's so many mosquitoes. Let's see. Well, it moved on me again. Dottie says, Magnolia is a horse that Emery owns. Oh, okay. Okay, well, I didn't see, if they've got a video out with all that, I haven't seen it, so I don't know anything about it, and I didn't know the horse's name was Magnolia. If you didn't know, I don't hang around the horse thing much anymore. I kind of swore off of the horses right after Phantom left. I really don't think I ever rode another one until JR got one, and he got a really barn sour mare, and I rode her all the way home, and I've told that story before. They said, you can't ride her home, and I said, oh, you want to bet on that? And they said, well, she rears up. You can't get her away from the barn. She'll rear up with you. I said, well, if I can't ride her, why am I buying her? So I said, but thanks for telling me. So I walked over and cut myself a limb about 2 feet long, about as big around as your thumb. Got on her and started riding. She reared up right between her ears, and she came back down. We went about another 5 steps, reared up again, right between her ears. She went back down. We went about 40 steps. One more time, she reared up, right between her ears. Rode her 2/3 of the way home. She reared up one more time, right between her ears. She didn't rear up after that. So there you go. That's just the way it works. Horses will kill you if you don't take care of it. And you might say that's being mean, but they'll kill you. I mean, they'll flat kill you. There's no, it ain't, yeah, you can pussyfoot around, you can do the horse whispering stuff all you want, but they'll kill you if you're not careful. And I'm careful. Let's see. Captain Bubba, ice maker not making ice. Mine does the same thing. Tempering. How did you know mine's not making ice again? Did I tell you that? Did I tell him that?
No, you said something about.
A long time ago I did, but did I say anything this week about it?
No, you said something about about the native.
Oh, I can't have an ice. Have a bad. Well, right now we don't have any ice cube. Well, actually, I got the bottom one working again. It quit working the other day. Our Samsung refrigerator is a time travel machine. What it does is it travels you back to the 1920s before you could make your own ice, and it's just, I'm tired of living in the 1920s. So I ordered a new ice maker for the top unit off Amazon. It's supposed to be redesigned where they don't freeze up so bad, but I'll believe it when I see it. It is a piece of junk. I would not recommend. I mean, it keeps the food cool, the freezer part's good, but the two ice makers that are in it, they both suck canal water. Anyway, let's see. Moving on. I tell you, lots of the different ice makers these days on lots of different refrigerators, they just don't work well. And that's really stupid because they used to work just fine. Didn't have any problems with them at all. But now they don't work good. And you pay twice as much for them. It's really stupid. Ben Boyd, love the psychology painting. Maybe a new painting, including a mandolin, YouTube, metal detector, arrowhead, Civil War, etc. Might be a fun project. Titled My Life Part 2. Well, that's not a bad idea. Simon's there. Says, he didn't have any question marks, though. Says, I find art, Jerry, I have to practice to get to my best, a bit like playing an instrument, I suppose. Like you, I haven't drawn in years. Yeah, I really just haven't. I haven't picked up a pen or a pencil or anything. I used to draw and paint all the time, but I don't do it anymore. Carolyn Fike, maybe it's a good thing you married Sue. Her luck balanced yours. That's a fact. Yeah, there's all kinds of good reasons why I married Sue. She also cuts the grass. I got no complaints. Let's see. The Outboard Tinkerer. Did you ever open up canopy glue and find in dried up, sealed, and just bought? No, my canopy glue's always been real good. I haven't had any problems with it. In fact, it seems to keep a long time, actually. So if you bought new glue that was messed up, I'd say it was really old. I don't know. That's weird because I haven't had any problem with it at all. Zappa, he's talking to David Tharp. Never mind. Looks like we're down to the last one. Zappa again. It says, Jerry, stop living in the 20s. Move up to the 50s. Get some ice trays. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what we had to do. We did have to do that for a while. And it's sad. It's just really sad. It's a time travel machine. That's how I would sell them if I was the salesman in the store. I'd say, would you like to buy a time travel machine? Here's one.
There was talking about going back in time. Was up in Wisconsin, and a young man was checking us out at the dollar store next door to the hotel, and the lady was behind me was buying a bag of BLT flavored Lay's potato chips, and she was saying, "Yeah, this is the last bag," and the Lay's guy told me these are so good, it's just like eating a BLT sandwich. And the young man looks at her, he goes, "What's a BLT?" And we both laughed, and she said, "Are you kidding me? You don't know what a BLT is? That's a bacon, lettuce, and tomato sandwich." The young man, he was probably 18 or 19 and didn't have a clue what a BLT was.
Yeah, well.
Like, where are these kids? You know, like you were talking about, Jerry, they're just...
Yeah, that's all they know. They're smartphone dumb. Smartphone dumb.
Show you stuff on a computer that blow your mind, but don't know what a BLT is.
Yeah, they don't know how to, they couldn't pound sand in a rat hole, as we say here in the country.
Talk about it.
Not very many people want to pound sand in a rat hole anyway, but they wouldn't know how.
You talk about appliances. We have a Hitachi microwave. I kid you not. We bought it probably 1986, right after Billy Ray was born. And There was the third microwave that we had, and the first two didn't work out, so we got that one. And that microwave, I kid you not, we got it in 1986. Bought it when we were stationed in Turkey at the Air Force Base there, and that thing, we just, every time we use it, we cross our fingers hoping that it doesn't go out, because, I mean, what are the odds we're going to get another one that'll last that long?
Right. Well, we've got a dishwasher in there that was in this house. It was used when we bought the place. We bought the place 25 years ago, and it was already really used. You could tell it was probably 8 or 10 years old at that time, and it's still working. And I shouldn't have said that out loud. But I was going to talk about your BLT potato chips. If I could do the B part of the potato chips, but the L and T, if it actually tastes like lettuce and tomatoes on the potato chips, I'd have to throw that in the compost pile. This man don't eat plants, and that's pretty much a black and white 100% true statement, except for just a few things like nuts and, breads, cereals. Yeah, potatoes. I eat the 3 starches: potatoes, corn, and rice, and that's it. And that's only if they're plain. If you put onions in them, forget it. It ain't going down these pipes. Not even close. That's just the way it is. And my grandson inherited the same tasting problem, and he's the exact same way. In fact, he's worse than me. He really is. And that's really sad, because he's way worse than me. The outboard tinkerer, Jerry, I've started building a time machine replica from the 1960 movie on 60% done and lost interest. Ramona Webb says, careful, don't talk about my microwave. Dottie Hillebrand, I have a dishwasher like yours. Well, I don't know why that thing's still working. And, keep in mind, we also have hard water. It's well water. Well, it's not, for as well water goes, it's about the best I've ever seen. But it's still hard water compared to your standard tap water, And seems to just be functioning just fine.
Yeah, Ramona has she has a 62-year-old dishwasher, but it only works occasionally.
62-year-old. Yeah, well, the 69-year-old here doesn't do dishes too often. I mean, like if she's gone for a week or two, I might wash a few things. I usually just use the same cup over and over and wash that. That's pretty much how I do it. Or the same, I use paper plates. I don't bother with dishes. There's no reason to. I mean, all I'm going to do is make a sandwich anyway. I'm not going to make anything that requires cooking. Ed says, this was a great vlog. Well, I hope everybody else felt that way. I hope you enjoyed seeing all the stuff. I've got a lot of worrying to do, so I'm going to get busy doing that. We'll see you tonight with a show, hopefully. Some more questions just popped up right then. Zappa says, I'm using a microwave purchase in 1987. Well, a microwave... I've got one down there in my shop that's probably that old too, and it still works just fine. But a dishwasher, typically they last about, 5 years? Something like that. Ronald Todd, speaking of dishwashers, I have one that came with the house in 85, and the house was built in 64, still working. Well, that's pretty cool to hear. I just thought we were unique on the planet on the dishwasher thing. We'll see you tonight with a show. Thank you all for being here. We'll see you then.